our candidates in our reservation who are running for various offices. And tonight we have Gypsy Wanna, who is running for council and in the Haifa district. And what I'll do next is I'll go ahead and introduce her, and she will give us some qualifications and introduce herself first, and then give us some qualifications, and from there we'll proceed with the questions. So Gypsy, it's all over to you now.
All over to me. Okay, like I said, my name is Gypsy Wanna. I'm a member of the Haifa district. My family is Marcia Renville's my mother, and I know a lot of people around here know her. She worked for the BIA and for IHS for many years. My grandmother is Alma Renville, and then her parents was James Wanna and Nora Greeley. And I've been a member of our district obviously since I was born. I've been in our district and active in the district for several years now. When I moved away, I moved back home here in 2005 because I knew I was always going to come back here when I retired, but I didn't retire yet. I'm still working. So I moved back in 2005, and I've been involved. I was involved with the district off and on up until about maybe 10 years ago. And so I've been our district secretary. I've been on our youth committee. I've been on our district powwow committee, the district constitution committee, and the SWO judicial board, and also our district election board over the years. So that's that. For school, I went to school and got a computer operator degree. That's where I started out, and that's where that really helped me to get a ton of jobs that I've had ever since. I've worked in a variety of different areas. I've done a lot of different things. I've worked in human resources. I've worked in maintenance for admin assistant. I worked at a cable company. So I know a lot of computer, be able to use the computer, Word documents, typing in email and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's important, especially in today's environment. We have so many people that don't know how to use it yet. Anyway, so that's that. I've been currently working in the community health education program for 8 years now. I started in 2012. Mom, you're in the background. Since 2012, and that job entails providing education to the community so that our membership can make healthier choices to improve their health and promote health and disease prevention. We've done that through a lot of health fairs. We've started doing Facebook shows on our community health education page. We were doing one called CHE 411. That was a weekly one on Tuesdays, but with COVID, we started doing CHE Fast Fact on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that's just a 5-minute thing where we have 5 minutes worth of facts. And with one, this is the most wide variety job I've ever had. We've gotten a lot of training. We do HIV education, hepatitis C education, car seat safety education. So I've got a lot of certifications and training through this position in order to help the community become more knowledgeable and more safer. I guess that's it for now. I mean, unless there's any other specific questions relating to those.
All right, very nice, Gypsy. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, go ahead and start with the questions. And one of the first questions we commonly ask people is about transparency and what does it mean to you in tribal government?
That's a good question, because you hear a lot about that lately, and it seems like I don't get the transparency. To me, it means basically getting regular updates and communicating with the membership. And letting people know exactly what council or what projects are being worked on right now, what's in the works, what's coming up, and just constantly keeping the people informed about it, what decisions are being made or which way they're leaning towards. A lot of times decisions are made and we don't hear about it till way later. And I don't know if that's from, it's not being publicized well enough or something. But anyway, just basically keeping people apprised of everything that's going on.
Right. So that's a second part of the question was, how will you work towards transparency in tribal council if you are elected?
I I would like to, I have a Facebook page. I haven't put too much on it right now, but if I was elected, I would continue to utilize the Facebook page. Number one, our district has a Facebook page, but then I would also like to have one as a council rep and put weekly, weekly updates on there. What we're doing each week, possibly doing a show with KXSW and for the radio and that TV station, and then regular newspaper articles on what's going on. And it can get pretty busy and hectic with stuff, but just doing the best that we can with always communicating everything that's going on.
Wow. Good. Sounds good. It sounds like you've given it some thought. So one of the things that I always tell people about transparency is that it really seems to be about communication and really getting the message out there to your constituents and your people. So yeah. So all right, very good. Let's go to the next question. I've not asked this one yet, but it's kind of interesting because I think a lot of people are very opinionated about it, and it's about racism. It goes, do you know what racism means? Question mark. I don't just mean from other races, but towards our own enrolled members. Why are off-reservation members such a threat, and how do you plan on addressing racism within our tribe? And that's really kind of an interesting question. I don't think it's worded succinctly, but I think it's I have opinions on that because a lot of us are biracial or multiracial in some instances. And so, we sometimes people who are multiracial, they are kind of white passing in a sense, and they have to acknowledge sort of a kind of a white privilege at times, whereas people who are darker complected, we have to sometimes there'll be feelings towards that. As well as feelings of exclusion of other people who are not as dark complected. So what are your opinions about that?
Okay. Well, first of all, that's 4 questions. But anyway, yeah, I know what racism is. Obviously, I'm light complected. I'm a tribal member, and I grew up here. I grew up on the reservation here in Sisseton. I went to high school here, graduated here, and I experienced racism from both sides. That's what I say, both sides, from tribal members as well as non-native peoples. And the craziest thing is the non-native people didn't know who I was, but they knew my name was Wanna, and that's a well-known name around here for being a tribal member. So
I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't know that? Wow, something new. So I grew up with that, and I'm sure a lot of people around here, light skinned or not, we grew up. That's where we go. It seems like on reservation towns, that's what it is. You deal with that racism every day, and you've got to deal with the stereotypes every day, and every day that's a battle. Every day you've got to you feel like you have to prove yourself. Not just to the non-natives, but sometimes to our own tribal members, because sometimes you're viewed as not being native enough, you're not Indian enough, or you're not a real Indian, and that's not even cool. And as you're growing up, when you're younger and when you're developing and learning and changing, when you're confronted with those things, you don't know how to respond. It's a whole new thing for you, and you don't know how to respond. I think about that and talk about it today, about some of the things that were said to me when I was younger, and you completely draw a blank, like how are you supposed to respond to that? Because some people who are totally racist will think of you as a thing, an object. And then once they get to know you as a person, then they have some kind of an opinion that might be positive. And so I guess that's how it is, racism from both tribal members and non-native people. And as far about, doing what can you do about it, and what I could do towards helping that is I don't know for sure, other than just providing more education and giving people the story like what I just told you about growing up and how we have it from both sides. And just more education. And one thing we always have to remember, this isn't what you can say always remember, is you can't say all people or everyone, because that's not true in any statement that we make, that all people are racist or all, whatever. We can change that to some or most, but not, it's never all. I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, well, they're not specifically for me, but they're for the group.
Well, the question then, does that answer the
Right.
question?
So one of the four parts of that question was, why are off-reservation members such a
Yes.
threat? And that's kind of interesting because it might not necessarily be racism as it is political, but some of it might be. So what do you think of that?
That's good too, because I'm like, I don't know why some people would think of it as a threat. Me, I personally don't think that's the correct description for off-reservation people. I don't know. I was like, maybe because, who knows? But I don't think that off-reservation are a threat. That's just not the right wording to me to describe the differences. That's all.
Okay. Maybe that could go into our next question is, what do you think of allowing voting by mail-in ballot for all tribal members?
For all tribal,
including the off-res people.
And that's been coming up a lot. They've been talking about for years. And I don't know that there's actual policy in place for that, but I think it would be a good idea, but we'd have to make sure that it has, the policy, the guidelines in and out. They have the district election board and they have to follow whatever policy for the election to take place. And so I don't see why it couldn't take place like that too. Have the policy and allow that to happen, but to make sure that it's all spelled out with the policy to make sure, whatever rules are followed and so there's no double voting or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And that's a tough one.
Yeah, it is, right?
People are really, that's a controversial topic.
Right. But should it be?
No, it shouldn't.
Yeah,
I don't think it should. I mean, we should be able to talk about it and at least, hear both sides instead of shutting down completely.
Right. There's a lot of us. There's 4,000 of us off-res?
Well, I'm sure it's more than that.
Yeah.
Well, there's about 13,000 members, so.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's happening.
Yeah. Am I cutting that number in half? Maybe it's 8. I can't remember anyway. But I'll just let you know, Gypsy, there's 1,300 people in this Facebook group of off-res people.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So at some point they'll all be listening to you and your answers. So. All right. Next question. Do you support cultural preservation, specifically our Dakota language, history, artifacts, and art?
Yes, I do. I think that's important that we keep it, that we have it, and then to support it. Now, I don't know a whole lot. I don't know a whole lot about it and stuff. And again, it's not taught in our schools. It wasn't, and we went to public school because they didn't have the tribal school yet. But yeah, I think it's very important, especially the culture and what they used to do. My stepdad, Jim Whitted, used to work in DIPO. He worked in that department and just retired a few years ago. But he was telling me a lot of things when we went berry picking and chokecherry and Teepsana and stuff. He was telling me a lot of things about the mounds and the rocks, the stones, a lot of those different things. And that's really quite interesting. That's something I hadn't known before. I didn't, and I'm as old as I am now. And I just learned that, like this past year and the year before, just in the last few years. And that gave me such a sense of pride, even though it's not me that did all that stuff, but knowing that our ancestors were here that long ago, and that we know some of these things, and because the history of the earth is so long, and then knowing that our people left some of this stuff here today. And to me, it gave me, like I said, a sense of pride. And if we could teach this to all the kids, you can be instilled with that pride and confidence growing up. And I think that's a great way that we can help build resiliency, especially when we're dealing with historical trauma and how much we've learned about it today and how that affects our health. So to me, it's very important. And like I said, culture, history and stuff, I was like, we were doing Teepsana and picking berries and stuff, so.
Right. Right. So if you were elected on the council and let's say COVID went away miraculously and we were back to normal times, right? Um, what do you think that you would support a measure such as like a museum or some kind of cultural program for language or arts?
Yes, yes, I would. That's a good idea. And I know there's been talks of that stuff before, but what I'd like to know is to make sure that before somebody says they're going to do it, that we are going to have this. I mean, because some of this stuff has been in the works. They said that was going to happen. Something was going to happen at Dakota Connection, and they had the whole spot lined out. But I don't know if that was what they wanted and they needed funding, or if there was funding and it got taken away. I don't know that part. I suppose I should research that, but it's a good idea. It would be really good. And that would also help the tribe in the future, because if you have a museum, that goes towards tourism and tourism and selling stuff, t-shirts, whatever, and get some more income for the tribe.
Yeah, that's actually a wonderful idea. Museums are great for that, for buying T-shirts and souvenirs and stuff like that. All right, next question. It is reported that our grocery store has been losing money since it opened. The tribe has invested millions, apparently. What is your opinion on the Dakota crossings? If we were to close it, what could we use that space or that building for, or those resources? Where would you like those directed?
Okay, so, well, I like our store. I'm glad we have it. There's a lot of controversy of why it got started or how it got started and stuff, but I like our store. I shop at our store, and I hope to keep it open. Because it not only, I mean, it provides jobs for one thing, and it's not hundreds of jobs, but it's jobs nonetheless. It's our tribal members that work there. So when I go shopping there, I get to say hi to the people that I know. And then also, when you go into the store, it's nice to feel welcome and comfortable, where you're not feeling like somebody's staring at you or you're being judged for shopping in there. And you get a sense of ownership, or at least I do, because it's a tribal store. It's our store. I can walk around and say, that's our store. I'm part of, we own part of that because we're tribal members. And so that's what I like about it. And the gas station is there. And I like being able to spend my money that I earn at our store to keep the tribe going. I'd rather going there than to a non-native business, especially when the owners of the non-native businesses basically, are racist and don't like us anyway.
Yeah. Some of those points I hadn't thought about that, and as being a part owner, when you're walking through there, and I have been there, by the way, and as well as feeling comfortable walking in the store, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and even here, and I don't know if you know that, but I live in San Francisco, California, and even here sometimes I get followed around the store sometimes at certain stores.
And you guys are way more diverse out that way, so.
You're right, you think, but I know, but it happens everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, those are good points. What about though the fact that it's losing money? What would you do about that?
Well, we need to have, I don't know what happens when we get some managers in there, if whoever manages and what the deal is and why there isn't more accountability. But we need to have better management, qualified, and again, that's where the transparency comes in. And then managers and being holding people accountable that are in the positions of management. And then if we got to keep, the management has to be different. So I know a few years ago there was talk about Section 7, and I personally think that's what a good idea with all of our tribal businesses were under that Section 7, because then decisions are made by a board, and this board isn't just another one comprised of 7 district members. It's professionals in the fields that would kind of make it not political, because a lot of our decisions for the businesses become political. And it's some of those decisions, especially when it comes to the casinos, they're just not feasible. They talk about the raises and giving the casinos employee raises. And sometimes it's just not feasible just because 7 districts make it, because now they got to come up with the financials to meet that demand. And that changes every so often. So that's a political thing. So we need to get the politics out of our businesses and let them run as businesses. That's what I think.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. Great. Great. One of the things that one of the points that some other people had made was that some of the non-res people in town and surrounding towns didn't really come like they thought, like the council thought they would come, right? So is there a way to increase visibility so that more non-res people come to the store?
Good question.
Yeah, you can think about it.
What about the like the advertising? There's like the casinos have the commercials on the radio station. Are we doing that? And then other newspaper articles. I know we do a lot of stuff in the Shota, but are we doing it anywhere else? Any of the other local newspapers, the flyers or their weekly ads? Those are some ways to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So overall, just maybe a little more visibility. I mean, we don't want you guys to micromanage the store. That wasn't the point. But make sure that these big points are being looked at, right?
And so if we had proper management, they would be on top of that already.
All right, there you go. All right. All right, next question. Do you have any ideas for economic development?
I'm playing dead on that. No, I'm kidding. No, there's been a lot of good ideas already over the last few years. I mean, for years. They started out with the windmills.
Wind farms.
Wind farms. They've talked about that. Lately, it was the solar power. Now they're talking about the hemp projects and manufacturing those for certain products. Tourism, expanding Dakota Connection. We were talking about the museums and gift shops and stuff. So those are all really great ideas, but they never seem to take hold. And I think it's because of the politics. Too many people wanting to be recognized when it takes many people to make something like this happen. And again, we need to have good management. We need to have good management, and that would allow the checks and balances so we don't have mismanagement happening anymore. Again, transparency and holding people accountable for these things, and not just either covering it up or what we see a lot of times today is if there's money missing, somebody stole money or embezzled.
Okay.
If they're sometimes if they pay it back, then they don't get charged, or they do get charged and they have to pay it back, but really no jail time. So that's not right, because that's not a person's personal banking account. It belongs to the tribe, which is for the rest of the people. So with those business ideas that they're already there, that have already come through, it's just getting some proper management in those places. Otherwise, I don't think we'll ever have a successful economic growth.
Yeah. So your answer basically is that you feel that there's plenty of ideas already out there. It's just being able to follow through on them, which leads us to kind of politics and other issues. All right, good. All right. Next question. Here we go. So one of the biggest issues coming up in this fall's election will be the decline in revenues from our 3 casinos due to the pandemic crisis. In light of the declining revenues, what programs or projects do you think need to be reduced or replaced? And how will you make a significant difference from other candidates running against you?
Okay. So that's a tough question, I think.
It is.
Every year.
It was tough because it was thrust on us. It was thrust upon us in such a quick manner,
Right. And so the thing with this is that it seems like every year in areas, there's always like something that's got to be cut here or there. And of course, nobody wants to see a budget cut. Nobody wants to see a program cut. We don't want to lose any benefits. We want to be where we are and, keep that way. And so one of the things, one of the things we could, with good management, again, for the casinos, is to have them be able to build up that emergency money so they can continue to improve and operate, basically continue to grow instead of just staying at the same level over and over again where there's nothing to improve on. But we don't want any benefits to go. If we have good management, I think right now what we could do is, how do I want to say that? See where we are on efficiency, because to me, I see a lot of waste in our businesses, in our work, in our jobs, whether it be duplication of duties, duplication of services, staff that aren't necessarily, I mean, everybody's needed, but sometimes jobs can be combined, sometimes jobs can be expanded. I'm just thinking, looking at the efficiency and managing the waste of it, of what we already have. And with proper management, you know, you'd think we wouldn't have to do any cuts. And those are something we have to seriously think about, because our population is continuing to grow. How many years ago? I don't know. When I was younger, I mean, I just rough estimates, you know, we were like at 8,000 or 9,000. Of course, when the tribe first became a tribe, you know, we didn't have very many people. You know, how many? 100,000? I mean, 800 or 900 to 1,000. We're now at over 13,000 members. And so you know, whatever we do, we've got to make sure that we can stretch our dollars, manage it properly so that we can continue funding at current levels with the increased population. Because there's definitely no way we can keep doing what we're doing, especially like, for example, at our district, the elderlies, they get birthday money. And every month there's new elders. But say, I don't remember the numbers right now, but say we had 55, but this month there's like 15 more. So now there's going to be 70 elders and they all get $100. So 70 times 100, we don't have $70,000. So we all can't give everybody birthday checks at $100 a month. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm kind of talking about, managing it better and I mean, especially if we want to continue growing and thriving.
All right. So Gypsy, one of the things that I did notice was that the tribe did take away the elderly cards when the pandemic started, due to you know, to offset the decrease in revenues. Do you think that was a good decision, or should they have made layoffs instead, or reduced other programs instead?
Good question. Tough one.
If you were in charge, would you do that?
I think I probably would have voted for that, in the sense that, because that is a big chunk of change. And elders do receive other assistance from their districts. I mean, not only do they get the food coupon, but they also get the money from their districts. Not that that's a whole big thing, but at least for that particular time, they got there's the district to help with that. And I would hope that our younger people, the families, would step up and help take care of their families, their family elders. And it sucks, because that's an important thing. And we need to take care of our elders, but we also need to take care of the rest of the population, the rest of our tribal members. And what are we going to do if there's no money for anybody? Sometimes and so that was a tough one. It was a last minute one, and I don't know how you plan for such a big cut all of a sudden. But when we have from regular income to zero income, and then they were still paying the employees when they were on that work from home stuff, you know, something had to give somewhere. Instead of stopping all programs, I mean, we were still trying to provide car seats for our program, the education somehow. So still trying to operate with little dollars that were left, I think. And that's a tough one. I mean, that is a very bad decision. I mean, not a bad decision, but a tough one to make, because you're not going to make everybody happy. And, you know, what do you do? You're between a rock and a hard place.
Right. It is a tough call, isn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Especially when
it's not made lightly, obviously.
No,
you know, thinking
really.
about the pros and cons of both. So.
Right. All right, great. Next question. What do you think about council members who vote against their district's motions? Not if they're sure if they're referring to anything in particular, but maybe you have some ideas.
Okay, so you know, I've been thinking about that a lot lately, the last couple of years, because there have been some, I've been seeing how some motions were being made at council, and they were clearly violating the Constitution, or maybe even illegal. I don't know if they were necessarily illegal, but they were violating the Constitution. Now, if the council, if that council rep's district wanted them to vote yes to clearly violate the Constitution, and that person voted no, then that's good, because I don't think we should be doing, I don't think we should be voting in favor with our district if they want us to do something illegal or something that's against the Constitution. We still have to do that regardless of, you know, what the district wants. I mean, this is a far-fetched analogy, but I'm going to say it. If my district, if I was elected and my district said, hey, we want you to go slice so-and-so's tires over there because, you know, we're pissed at them and they did this, this, and this. We're making a motion, you do it. So I go to council and make that motion and vote for it, but that's illegal. You can't do that. So let's, you know, let's be real here and think correctly and vote in accordance with our Constitution, with our policies. And if a council member is constantly going against their district for valid reason, I mean, if they have, you know, if the district is making a good motion and it's something that the district really wants, provided it's legal, etc., then they should do that. They should follow what their district wants. And if they don't, it's up to their district to hold them accountable. Because the district is the one that voted them in, so their district needs to make sure they hold their council rep accountable. But again, to me, the council rep still needs to make sure they follow the law and the Constitution.
All right, nice. All right. Next question. Do you have any issues that you'd like to work on as a person on the council?
Yes, there is. Well, one of the reasons why I decided to go ahead and run for council in the first place was because of all the issues with IHS. Now, so that's one of the reasons. One of the things I want to work on is IHS and how it is managed. What I've learned is that the reason we do not have, why we can't keep regular permanent providers here is because of the way IHS is managed at our local level. They don't recruit Native Americans. They say there's no Native American people applying for those positions, which is a lie. There are. They're pre-selecting these people. They say you're supposed to apply online and make the panel, but they do it somehow where not everybody that can be qualified are. And the non-natives there make it hard for a lot of the Native people. So we've lost a lot of Native providers, employees there. Also, even if they're not Native, you know, the other races, they left. They left because they can't stand the way it's operated. And by that, I mean, they have a, you know, I don't know, I might get in trouble, but this is, I said it before and I'm saying it again, because I put something in a show to last year too. Pharmacy, there's a pharmacist, the chief pharmacist is she's like oversees the medical director, the chief medical officer. She oversees him, and that's backwards. I mean, why does the pharmacist tell the doctor what to do when he's the the chief officer, the chief medical one? So those are the things, and then the poor things, oh my gosh, there's so many EEO complaints on this administration that it's not even funny. And you know, and that's not right. And so that's what angered me the most, is that that's the reason we can't keep providers here. That's the reason we do not have good health care, because management over there is allowing this wrong people to do whatever they want and not allow these good doctors to stay here. Oh my God. And I know there's going to be a few more leaving now. We lost like 3 last year. And they wanted to stay here. They worked here and they were doing really good work for the people. And I'm in community health education. So when we're out in the community talking, people will come to us and say, oh my gosh, this doctor, this one did a really good thing. They made a difference for me. And all it took was this. Or they just took 5 minutes and talked with me and explained this. It was a big difference. And so, and they were willing to stay here for at least 2 years. But then they didn't like it with the way it was operated because the wrong people are in charge over them that shouldn't be. That's why they left. That's pisses me off. And that needs to be changed. And then plus, you know, not recruiting more Native peoples or other races even to get in these jobs. I guess the other ones I wanted to work on was the ethics committee, maybe developing an ethics committee because of, I don't know, did we ask this already? We talked about Did you ask me if people, what about people being removed from office?
No, I don't believe so.
Well, anyway, we need, I think if there was an ethics committee because
Or
sometimes
not yet.
but that one, well, that's one thing I'd like to see is like, because with our ethics, you know, in the our constitution, we do have a code of ethics and it's not applied universally. Some people are removed because of petty reasons, and some people who've committed serious illegal activities or something, they don't get removed from office. And the Constitution clearly states what the code of ethics is, but it could be used with examples of what constitutes misconduct or makes you question what the tribe is and stuff. I don't want to get too graphic. Then there was what was the other thing? There was one other thing. I'm sorry, I forgot.
You want to go back to it when you remember?
Sure.
Okay, all right. Since you did bring it up, it's a little lower. That question's a little lower on the page there. But are you in favor of the way the current way that tribal councils and executives are suspended and removed from office? How would you make a more fair, complete, and factual process? And I think you already kind of spoke on this a little bit, but go ahead.
So, I mean, there's a process that spells out the the proper way to do it with due process. And that's good. We all deserve the due process, being notified and a chance to defend ourselves and stuff. But a lot of times, like I was saying earlier, the accused people or the person that wants to be removed, they may not always be valid reasons. Just petty reasons. One is because they think somebody shared a document somewhere. I mean, really, or being removed because somebody was unprofessional and rude. Those are not valid reasons to remove anybody. You can disagree, that's obviously going to happen. I mean, we're humans, we talk and we don't all agree with everything all the time. So there are going to be disagreements. We're not going to like things that get decided, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a cause for removal just because you don't agree with them or their beliefs or their policy or whatever. Again, that code of ethics could spell out some of those misconducts. Did you see do you have a copy of our Constitution with you? Anybody?
No, I don't currently, but maybe Shannon does.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have one, but I'm just saying, if you look at the code of ethics in our tribal constitution, it lists some of that stuff, but it says like misconduct. Well, what constitutes misconduct? Well, but to me, it's not being rude or disrespectful, because if that's a cause for removal, then pretty much nobody's going to be on council and nobody's going to be office anywhere, because at some point or another, someone's going to, that's a subjective view. It's not necessarily a fact. That's just based on someone's opinion and perception. So yeah, some of that other things I wanted to work on again was that section 7. We talked about that earlier. Putting all the businesses under section 7. I just think that'd be a really good idea to do that.
All right. Thank you very much. And so let's get to the next question. Regarding the tribal constitution, are you in favor of how it is written, or do you think it should be amended, and to say what?
I wonder who asked that question. Like, how do they mean how it's written? Like the wording, the format?
I think so. I think both those.
I don't like it. Of course, I don't like the way the Constitution anyways, because like, what do those words actually mean? They don't flow easily. They don't make it easily understandable. And of course, what's it going to take? I mean, one time I was thinking, I wish we could just start all over from scratch. But can we do that? According to our Constitution, we can't. So I don't know. I would like to have it rewritten and make it with, you have user-friendly software. I want a user-friendly Constitution that's easier to understand for everybody. Because Not, one of the words in there says, not in conflict with the tribe's constitution or something. That's ridiculous. And I'm like, why does it say it that way? Not inconsistent with Article 2. I mean, not inconsistent. Okay. Isn't there an easier way to say that? It's almost like a double negative or something. So yeah, I would just like to change it and make it easier to understand, and what do they say, with less legalese, if that's a possibility.
Yeah, you're not the first candidate to say that. There were some others who had mentioned that some of the points made, or of points of law made, were a little vague, and you could argue both ways on a particular issue. And so, yeah. Well, perhaps when, if you were elected on council, there would be a constitutional committee to review, some, and to review some of these points that are kind of vague, and things that we don't quite understand, and make it a little clearer. Yeah.
And they well, we do have a constitution committee, but it's again, the whole process, I wish it could be streamlined somehow, a little easier, but anyway, that's something to work towards.
Right. All right, great. Let's see. This is kind of an interesting question. Have you read the duties and responsibilities of the council that is in the early legislative policy? And do you agree with what is written? Why or why not? And are you in favor of a written document that spells out the duties of a tribal council member, I guess?
So I don't know what this early legislative policy is. I think somebody said it was something to do with council salaries. But no, I didn't read it. I didn't see it, so I don't know for sure what it says. But I do believe it is important that we do have a document that says what our duties are. Every other position has duties and responsibilities listed for them. Every job that you go to has duties and responsibilities listed for them. So we should have something that tells us what our duties are. And that's a good way to hold your council rep accountable. And as I was reviewing the Constitution again, the tribal Constitution and our district Constitution, it really doesn't have specifics about what the council rep's job is. In our district Constitution, it says we basically, we attend the meetings for the district, but otherwise the main thing is calling for an election for district boards, district executives, and handling the business. But then when you go to the Constitution for the tribe, it doesn't spell out our council rep duties as far as being on council.
Okay.
So tell me what to do. No, just kidding. We'll create one.
I think this is, we're almost down to the last question, I think. How do you view the purpose and function of tribal council? Is it a legislative or administrative body?
I don't think it's a definitive either one. It kind of comprises a little bit of both. According to the way things are now is that if there's going to be any amendments to our tribal codes or new codes, the council has to approve it. Council members are also ex officios over the different programs or the different boards and committees, and that's more of an administrative duty. But I think it's just a combination of both. It can't be one or the other. That's it.
All right, I think that's all the time that's all the questions we have. We have more time, but but that's all the questions that we have. Did you want to say some last things about your running for council?
Yep, I will. Okay, so like I said, I decided to run. One of the things that pushed me over the edge to decide to run was the issues went on with the IHS. But over the last few years, since I've worked in the community health education program, I've really learned a lot. And 10 years ago, you asked me, I would have never run for council. I never would have thought I'd be even doing this conversation right now and doing this question and answer session. That was just not in me to do that. I've learned a lot, and I really do not, it's really not, I don't like injustice and things that aren't right. And I just hope to make changes. I'm not perfect and I don't make all the right choices either, but when there's something definitely wrong and you know it's wrong and then you don't do anything about it, that's a problem. We need, and we're talking about transparency and making decisions based on if it's legal or, violating our constitution or not and stuff. And, I want to be able to do that stuff to make sure that the decisions being made are ethical, that they are right for the people, and that we're not violating anyone's rights, that we're following our constitution, our own guide, our own codes. I just really want to be able to help fix some of the wrongs that are done. That's one of the biggest things. One of the things I just can't stand. We see so many people that can't speak for themselves, that don't know how, that can't, or don't have the words to do it. I want to be able to help do that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running for council and hope to do that. And yeah, so I can keep saying that over and over again, but that's it in the shortened version.
Yeah. All right, Gypsy. There actually was one more question that I remember getting on the Facebook page, and it had to do with housing and the state of the housing for the tribe at this point in time, and how come felons can't have housing, or how come it's harder for single people to get housing? Do you have any opinions on the housing?
Well, let me see here. Housing's always a problem. In Sissican, it's hard to get a house anywhere, expense-wise. What I was thinking, I don't know why the felons are, whatever their policies are, that the funding they get for those houses, that's what they have to follow. And no matter if whatever funding source, if it's from the government and the guidelines say that you can't rent to felons, well, there's nothing we can do about that.
Right.
But
it's procedural, right?
Right. But if we had our own funding source and we set something, I don't know why we couldn't do that. But one of the things is that I was thinking is that not everybody is ready for a house. Not everybody is ready to live in a house, manage a house, or needs a house that's big. Especially, I'm thinking of the young single folks, like my son, or single moms even. A house would be too expensive to pay for. You got your electricity and your heat and food and all of that stuff, and you just something like, would an apartment building be feasible, especially for the younger folks that aren't ready for the responsibility of a house, of all that a house entails, because there's so much more to take care of. And if we've got an apartment building, the landlords take care of that. But if we're to have an apartment building, it's going to have to obviously have rules and regulations and strict guidance, so that there's not a lot of partying and breaking of the walls and what have you. But I don't know. I think I would like to see that. We've got so many houses there's a lot of houses that are being built, but then people get evicted, and I don't know what we can do about that. That's a problem that's going to take the whole community, especially if it's involving drug use and meth, when they have those drug busts at some of them. I don't even know how many there are, but that's been an issue. The hearsay is, that one got busted, and now they got to clean them and stuff, and so they're sitting there empty. But that's a community problem that we all need to work on, though. But I'd like to see an apartment building. Don't you think that'd be a good idea?
I think it'd be a great idea. Yeah, I live in an apartment building.
Yeah.
All right. So Gypsy, it's been an honor, and it's really a pleasure to having met you. So
thank you.
You're welcome.
And
so
I hope you guys vote for me when you vote. If you make it back, however it works, whatever.
Yeah. Like I said before, I think we have about 1,300 members now, and so a large portion of those people will be watching your video at some point. Yeah, especially those from your district. So
yeah. Okay.
And good luck.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Nice. All right. You take care. Have a good evening.
Okay.
Bye.